Hello everyone, this is James Shore with another test-driven JavaScript video. I'm recording this on February 24th, 2013. And we're picking up a few weeks after our last episode, and what we are working on here is touch events. We are trying to get our WeWikiPaint application working on iOS with touch events, and we are actually doing quite well. We have the ability in our iOS simulator to drag with our finger. I know it looks like a mouse here, but it's actually simulating real touch events, and it actually works. And I've tried this on a real iPad as well, and it really does work. So all we have left to do is handle the case of multi-touch events. Specifically, if we draw with two fingers, you can't really simulate it in the simulator, but on the real device, if you draw with two fingers, the drawing shows up in the middle, which is not what we want. We want it to just stop drawing entirely, I think. So that is what's next. Now, before we get into that, it has been a couple of weeks since I last recorded, and when I ran my test prior to recording, it failed in a couple of ways. First off, it failed. Well, let's bring up our testacular runner again. First off, it failed in iOS as expected because we do have a test for that multi-touch stuff, although it's not actually a very good test. We also saw Mac, the Firefox 19 fail, and I don't know what happened here. My browser upgraded between the last time I recorded, and now I'm getting this global leak detected thing. And I did some investigating into that, and what it is Mocha has this it has this global leak detector, and it's either something I'm doing or it's flaky, and I think because I'm a programmer, I want to blame everybody but myself, right? So I think there's a problem with Mocha's global leak detector, and it's interacting with Firefox 19 somehow. There's a couple of choices here. Now, we do have a global. We're defining a global in our client right here. So in that sense, the global leak detector is working because we didn't tell it that we had that global. In another sense, Mocha's global leak detector is not working because it never detected that before. Anyway, we can tell it that we've got that global like this. We say mocha.setup, and then we pass in the globals, and that will fix the problem. But check this out. It is about 4 times slower. It is ridiculously slow. So, and given that it's kind of flaky anyway, I think I'd rather just tell it to ignore the leaks entirely. So we can do that. And now everything's running fast and we don't get the error. So to make a long story short, if you are running a newer version of Firefox and seeing that leak problem, this is how to solve it. And we'll probably need to come up with some sort of permanent solution to that as well. But that will do for now. And while I'm in here, let me remember to upgrade our browsers to Firefox 19 and Safari 25. So there we go. Let's go ahead and check that in. Make sure it works. Yes. Oh, and the other thing about the Mocha global leak detection, if it was working properly, why wasn't it failing on the other browsers? There is something funky with it. So anyway, that's done. I also, as part of trying to troubleshoot that issue, I did upgrade to Mocha 1.8.1. So if you're following along, you might want to do that. Okay, so let's get to the multiple touches. So I looked at this offline between recording, and you should be glad I did because I spent hours on this. What we want to do is we want to simulate multi-touch. So we've got this multiple touch move, multiple touch start, multiple touch end, and that's calling this send multiple touch event. And what we needed to do was construct a touch list and send it in with a touch event. And that seems really straightforward, right? Well, no, not even close. There is no documentation on how to construct a touch event. None whatsoever. So I just went in and I tried to do it, and through a lot of trial and error, I figured it out. Let me show you how I did this. Basically, I looked at the properties on the touch and touch list event, or not touch event, it would be touch list. Let's see, let me pull that up. Yeah, here we are. I looked at the properties on the touch list reference, and I looked at the properties on the touch reference. And even though it doesn't say anything about constructors, I figured, well, maybe there would be a constructor. So that's what I did. I just sort of guessed a little bit. And the way I did it was this. I said var, touch object equals new touch. And of course, I have no idea which of these is which. So I start out just doing this and then dumping that. So let's see that. And just to see if we could call the constructor at all. And it fails, of course, because of globals. Let's go ahead and put in those. Okay, so now you can see it is dumping something. That's awesome. So now what we need to do is we need to go in and we need to figure this out a little bit further. And the reason I'm telling you, I figured this out already. I did it offline. But the reason I'm telling you this is because the hard part about test-driven development is figuring out how to test stuff you've never tested before. So this sort of reverse engineering is really helpful to know. So I thought you'd be interested to see how it works. So I saw that we were getting a touch object, which means that there is a touch constructor, even though it's not documented. So I tried dumping it. Now, sometimes this doesn't work because of circular references, but in this case, it worked fine. You can see that now we're seeing an identifier, page Y, screen X, all the stuff inside the object is there. Great. So, but how do we set it? Well, typically those are done through constructor properties. So I just went in and I put in a whole bunch of constructor variables and to see how they would come out. And you can see that they do come out. You get identifier is 3, page Y is 5, and so on and so on. And through the process of trial and error, it's sort of like one of those logic puzzles, Dave's uncle lives in the greenhouse, and well, anyway, it is a fun little puzzle where you just sort of trial and error map these out. And what it turns out to, I'll save you the details, but what it turns out to is the first parameter is, I don't know, haven't been able to figure that one out. The second one is the target, which I'm presuming is a DOM element. It works when I pass a DOM element through. The third one is the identifier. The fourth one is page X. And the fifth one is page Y. And then I believe, screen X and screen Y are 6 and 7. And I wasn't able to see anything else for the others. So there may be documentation on this somewhere. My Googling didn't find it, but there's a lot of stuff online, and I might have just missed it. But this is what I was able to determine. This is how you create a touch event. And through similar trial and error, I was also able to determine that if we said touch list like this, and actually I did a couple of them, then that would work as well. So that's how we construct a touch and touch list. And in my research, it does look like that we can pass those through to the production code and have it work. So I didn't get all the way to working because I figured you guys would want to see it, but this is what we need to do. And then this touch list goes into our touch event here. Let's do that. Now that we know what it is, let's actually make it happen. So we've got a touch list. So our target is going to be, it's going to be our jQuery element, but the actual DOM element encapsulated by that. So that's good. The identifier, I'm not sure what it is, but looking at the documentation, I think it's just a random identifier. So I think we can just say, for example, 0. Our page X, of course, is going to be our touch1.x. Our page Y is going to be touch1.y. Oh, and I just realized this should be relative 1x, relative 1y, and relative 2x, relative 2y. Those were just wrong. Okay, and screen X and screen Y, we've been setting that to 0. So let's just go ahead and do that. So that should do it. And what I'd like to do here is I think I would like to factor this out into a method called create touch that we can use to document how this works, how creating a touch works. So we'll put all these variables in here so it will be really obvious to somebody reading this in the future what the touch parameters are. And let's put, like I've said before, I like to put that at the bottom or below the thing that uses it. So there we go. So there we have it. Now, and we can actually inline that, I think. Well, let's not do it just yet. So let's call that touch A. It's a terrible name. Don't worry, we'll fix it. And then let's do it again for touch B. And that should work. It does. Let's make sure everything's still, the test shouldn't pass yet, but I want to make sure everything compiles and runs. That's good. Still failing because we're not actually doing anything, but now we've got our touches and our touch list. So let's go ahead and pass those in. And let's document this as well. So what we're looking at here is touches, target touches, change touches. All right. So now we're passing our touch list through. That should work. Okay. So we have now created a data structure that shows all the touches that the user is touching on the screen, or we're simulating it. We're passing it through. So now we should be able to go into our production code and say that if we have more than one touch when we start our touch event, or when we start a touch operation, that we are not going to actually start the drag, or we're going to, in fact, we're going to cancel it. So if, actually we need the original event. So we need our original event. If original event dot touches dot length does not equal 1, then we will stop drawing and return. Now, I expect this to fail because we haven't actually set up the touches object for our single touch event. There is no touch list there, so this should fail. Yeah, we got 4 failures. Null is not an object. That's perfect. Let's hack around that for now. This isn't a permanent solution, but for now we can say if original event dot touches and it's not equal 1. So basically, if we have the multi-touch object and it's not, and there's more than one touch, or there isn't exactly one touch, then we're going to cancel. This, I think, will make the test pass. Ooh, yes, yes, it does. Okay, good. So now we should be able to see this work when we run it manually. So let's go ahead and refresh and draw. So it's good, it's drawing. And now I'm going to try it on my real iPad since we don't have a way of doing that in the simulator. All right, you can't see it. Sorry, I don't have a camera for that, but it is working when I draw with one finger. And when I put down a second finger, it stops drawing. Perfect. Fantastic. All right, so we now have multi-touch working. Now, that is all the time we have for this episode. So next time, so we've gotten multi-touch working. Next time, we need to clean it up. It is ugly. It is so ugly. So especially, yeah, it's just bad. So next time, we're going to clean up this code. Don't skip that episode because cleanup is just as important. It's just as important or even more important than as actually getting the work done. So I will see you next time. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you then.